So yeah, I would like to mix maybe comments about Zombie Child, but also more, I don't know, like notations about what it is for you to write a screenplay, how do you do it. Like for example, this film, Zombie Child, this is a film that you did rather quickly because another bigger project was like starting very slowly, so you wanted to write and act fast. And you said that you found in one of your notebooks this idea of a film, a zombie film, and a film in Haiti. So this is like a double question. The one question would be about the genesis of Zombie Child, and one question would be about notebooks. Like, how do you organize your ideas? Like, it's always, of course, difficult to fund some films. All the films don't see the light of day. You have like famous cases of scenarios that were never shot and that you published in a book in France. So yeah. How do you organize your ideas? Do you keep notebooks? How do an idea come to you?
It's many questions, eh? Okay, what shall I start with? Okay, usually when you, for example, when you do a promotion for a film, the first question of the journalist is, why did you do this film? Where did the idea comes from? So you have an answer for that because it's promotion. But the truth is, there is no real answer. It's very mysterious how ideas come, and especially how and when do you know that the idea will be the next film? As a film is around like 2 or 3 years of your life, and it's something very mysterious. So I try to be in a state where you welcome ideas, and then when you have this evidence that it's going to be the film, you don't know why, but then you start to work. And yes, I write a lot all the time, so I've got a lot of notebooks and stuff like that. The case of Zombie Child is a little different. In fact, I spent like a year and a half writing a huge project. It was a mini-series, so like 280 pages. And as you said, I could feel that the financement would be tough. And I didn't want to go into a very long writing, and I wanted to change the process. Because usually, I'm like everyone, you have an idea, you do a first draft, a second, a third, then you start to finance, then you start to prepare, everything is very cut into segments. And I wanted to mix the whole of it. So I started in the beginning of March to search for an idea and wanting to shoot in October, which is very, very tight. This is only possible if the film is very cheap and if everything is thought at the same time. So 15 years ago, I was very interested in Haiti for some personal reasons, and that's when I read the story about Clervius Narcisse, which is a true story. This zombie that escaped from slavery, that was lost in his country for 10 years and then came back. And at one moment, I had the image of what this zombie could be. It's just a man that walks through the Haitian lands with his head down, And for me, this image was enough to say, okay, this could be the beginning of the film. The starting point of a desire for the film. So after the story of Clervius was quite easy to write because it's a real one, but I really understood that I had to find a point of view that was mine, not only a Haitian point of view, because it's very complicated as a Frenchman to come in Haiti and say the film will be only this. So I had this idea of the French part, and then what I did is the first time I do that, but the first thing, when I had basically the idea of the film, the two parts and everything, the first thing I wrote was the shooting schedule. Because I said to myself, okay, if I want to shoot in October, maybe I can raise like 1.5 million. That means that I will be able to shoot only 4 weeks, and I have to write something that fits into the 4 weeks. So the first thing that I wrote, it's on a A4 page. It's okay. Boarding school, 12 days. Sugar plantations, 2 days, and really the schedule of the film. And then I wrote some scenes that could fit in that. So I did it the other way, but one good thing about that is you make things possible. It's not like you write your script with all your desires and your dreams, and then you realize that you cannot shoot it the way you want because you don't have enough money or enough time. It was a good experience to do differently. And I started to cast before the writing was finished, and to prepare the film and to do the location scouts. And the script was finished, in fact, really like beginning of September, a month before shooting. So it was a different way to do for this film.
I mentioned that there was 8 versions of the film. The one that you finished 1 month before shooting was the 8th one. Yeah. So can you maybe explain what different stages you...
I did a first version that was very, very short, and that was just an explanation of the ideas, just to start to find some financial partners. It's a film that I produced also. So that one was ready for Cannes, and I found my 2 partners, like the distributor for France and the sales agents. When you got that, you start to discuss a little about money, and you try to understand, how far you can go. And then I started to do like a regular writing process, like, having I like to write quite quickly and do a lot of versions. I know some directors do 2 or 3 versions, and they spend a lot of time on. Me, I need to have a whole idea of the film, so to print it and read it, and so basically it's always around 10. It's getting. The structure was here at the beginning. It's just draft after draft. It gets more and more precise, especially on details. I am very attached to details, smaller, and I have this obsession for a long time that you must not write a script. You really have to write a film. So I think draft after draft, it's really it's not that the script gets better, but the film is coming inside the script.
And the film, and you told me that in Marseille, that it's kind of usual for you, but your films always resemble quasi exactly the script, and I really checked with that Zombie Child.
So it's very close to the
film. It's very, very close. So like some scenes where you find some alternate moments sometimes are switching. There is also some details, some songs that are being replaced, but it is exactly the same. So yeah, how do you feel about that?
It's good and bad at the same time. When I say I'm trying to write a film and not a script, it's to really to visualize. I think a lot about the editing when I write, especially a film like Zombie Child, who has 2 different material, and it's if you go from France to Haiti at this moment, what does it say? If you do this moment, what does it say? So it's quite good because you feel very close from your film. And the bad thing is that the more precise you are, after it's very difficult to change things because you went very far into one direction. So I think it's the problem when you are a little too control freak. It's very difficult to open yourself. But it's something I'm working on, to be at the same time precise and open to things. But usually when we arrive to the editing room, we do a first draft of the film, and very close from the script. And of course, it doesn't work, because what I in mind doesn't work with. So we have to break everything, and to try to find new structure with new directions. And at the end, in fact, I always noticed that you come back to the script, but in another way. Not with words anymore, with images, with sequences, with scenes and actors, but at the end it comes back very close from the script, maybe like one inversion of sequences, and that's it.
Maybe to come back to the beginning of the writing, because it's always some kind of like mystery to me how you are able to take a leap of faith into a feature film without maybe knowing like the whole structure or the outcome of everything. When do you feel confident about starting to write? Like, do you have to know the outcome of the character's arc, things like that?
Not the characters, but what's important is if I can start to write when I have an idea of how to tell the story, and usually everything fits into one page. For example, Nocturama, the whole film was in one page, the most important stuff. The fact that it was in two parts, first part only outside with a lot of movements, no words, the second part inside at night with a lot of words, first part original music, second part music as a jukebox. And then when you have this in one page, you say, okay, I have the film. Now I have to write the scenes. But it doesn't go for me through the characters or the subject. This comes draft after draft. It's more the formal way of saying the story.
What I really like about Zombie Child, and this is quite maybe particular because you are taking an example of a film that is cut in half, and you've made quite a lot of films about following that structure. But this one is also sort of broken, but more in alternance, like you're alternating between two very heterogeneous material. So maybe to come back to that, because I don't know if you like completely answered that question, how the idea of the teenagers, the sorority came like with the idea of the zombie, and how did you like switch from one story to the other and alternate?
As I say, the starting point was Haiti, but I had to find a French point of view to welcome the Haitian story. So I invented the character of the granddaughter, and it had to be contemporary for me. It was very important. So I like the idea of teenagers to receive the story, because for them, zombies, it's the age where you watch a lot of zombie films, and it's very American and it's fun, and they're going to receive the story of a real zombie from Haiti, and I like this contrast. So I invented this granddaughter, and the fact that her parents died in an earthquake, and mother had the Légion d'honneur, so she comes to France. In fact, she comes to France to tell us the story. So it's like, and then I was searching for an idea to make the girls together. I didn't want the parents around, so I say, okay, a boarding school. I like this kind of universe and places. Does it still exist, girl boarding school? I didn't know, so I searched on Google, Paris girl boarding school, and the first one that came up was this is House of Légion d'honneur, created by Napoleon. So that makes another link with the film, as the relationship between Napoleon and Haiti and slavery is very, very important. So sometimes some intuitions drives you to some very solid links of things. But when I had the idea of the boarding school, I wanted to have a white female character to be the main character, and discovering little by little this zombie story. And something I really wanted to try in this film, I just go back to your second question, with the films, previous films cut in two, and this one more into parallel editing, is what happens if you have two very simple stories. The zombie story is quite simple, and the French story is very simple also. It's a teenager that has a love sorrow, And when you put them together, is there a third story that appears, or something underneath that is not so simple, that is, and it's getting more complex and maybe more political. And that was the, it's like when you do some editing, you have one image, then a second image, and when you put them together, you give something, maybe that appears, And that's what I was trying to find in the writing and in the editing room. So I tried, that was really during the first draft of the writing, but a lot of different structures, a lot of different moments to go from present to past, or from France to Haiti, to see what was the most, sometimes at the bad moment was really surprising, but I like that. Sometimes when it's, you just try stuff. Well, one thing I learned, we have to compare writing scripts and editing. It's really, the same process, in fact. But there is something that I learned, is that, in fact, there is no rules. You have to try. You have to try this kind of. Why, for example, when you write a scene, the scene is pretty good, and when you read the script, the scene is boring, So if you put it here, if you cut one word, maybe there is something missing that makes the scene more interesting. I know these professional screenwriters have a lot of rules, Me, not at all. It's just a feeling.
You never relied on any screenwriter's manual or handbook?
No, I've never read them. I know the 3 acts is something that, of course, works, and I always have 3 acts in a way, but it's just because I think it's natural when you tell a story. But no, I would be afraid to open one of these books now, and realize how wrong I was all my life, and I should have read them much earlier. But it's a very strange object, the script, because it's an object that demands a lot of work, a lot of time, and that is here to disappear. In fact, it's everybody is on the script, the actors, the producers, the agents, and it's something that is going to disappear. So it's a strange object that everybody. There is a. I don't know if you've seen this film of Philippe Garrel, Les Baisers de Secours. There is a scene at the beginning of the film which I always loved. It's Philippe Garrel is playing a director as usual, and the actress is Anemone, and she comes to him and they're walking on the street, and she says, "Okay, but I've read the script, but what is the film really about, And he says, when you write a script and give it to people, everybody has a very precise idea of what the film's going to be. The actors, the technicians, the producers. If you really want the film to exist, there must be one person who doesn't know what the film is going to be, and that's me. That's my job, not knowing. And I really like this approach of, yes, I can write, but I don't really know, in fact.
So do you give your screenplay to your actors, or?
At what moment I have to? No, it depends.
I mean, as a whole.
Yeah. I give to the actors. For example, Zombie Child. Some people thought there was a lot of improvisation, because there is these young girls talking and blah blah blah, making jokes. Everything is really written. The only scene that is improvised is the history lesson I gave to the teacher the subject, and he did an improvisation of 10 minutes, and that's it. Otherwise, very precise. I tried on this film improvisation. It was a mess. It was totally. It's very difficult, in fact. So I try to work dialogues as well as I can. Alone, saying them in my room. Acting them alone. To try to have the good music. And then I try to keep the actors as close as possible of the text. Yeah.
This one is quite particular because you like the main characters are young girls, and it's always hard to put words like your words in for them, and so you wrote with you.
Yeah, I had some help from my daughter. My daughter is really the age of the characters. She was 15, and the characters were 15, and I asked her for just is that okay for these words, this situation, and she corrected not a lot, but like every scene something. No, we wouldn't use this word. This is like so 2016. You're too old. Let me do. So yeah, she gave the right music to this youth, and she's going to do that also with maybe next film of Isid Lebesco, working with teenagers too, and it's. Yeah, to find the good music, it's I can't say better than that.
So on the shooting, you're not really changing the dialogues. They are really close. So you're not having this kind of discussion with your...
And sometimes when not on this film, but Nocturama, maybe one scene, and if I can feel that the actors are not good, you try to direct them, and maybe after a few takes, you have to realize that maybe it's not so well written, So sometimes I changed, but because it's my mistake. Otherwise, I try to stick on it. I'm not very keen of improvisation. It's something that might be great on the set, and then when you go into the editing room, you realize that it doesn't fit in the film because it was not thought before.
Would you want to reproduce this experiment that you had with Patrick Boucheron, who is a famous French historian, who's appearing at the beginning of the film and who's giving a lesson that you filmed for quite some time, and which is unscripted and not planned, even if you gave him some indications, but you don't want this to change the course of the film.
No, I mean, this is very particular because you're asking someone, you give him time and space to express himself. It's not an improvisation, in fact, it's like welcoming someone and his point of view about history, about the world, and about the 19th century. And it's like having a guest and listening to him. And I thought his words were precious, and you're very happy to give it to the audience. It's like a particular dispositif, in fact. I wouldn't consider it's improvisation. This is something I like, and it gives into a very structured film. It gives the writing of Zombie Child. You could see in the script that it would be a very hybrid film, welcoming genre movie and some ethnological stuff. That you can see that I was very precise on this voodoo ceremony, but of course this is the shooting was more close of documentary than pure fiction. So you don't direct. In fact, you just put the camera and record what's happening. And this is something in the writing that I was really searching, this hybrid structure of the film.
It's strange because I've already heard you using this word hybrid, and I don't remember you using it before.
No, it's the first time.
Yeah.
No.
And it's quite a popular word in festivals. So many filmmakers are trying to find hybrid forms. But yeah, what was so pleasing for you in this idea?
I think it was after a few films that are so, I was searching to control everything, and this huge time I spent on my mini-series writing and very precise. What I call hybrid is you know, is being able to welcome different way of telling a story, and I think it was also it went also with the speed of the process. If you want to be very quick, you cannot control everything, so you have to welcome stuff, and also the fact that I wanted to approach voodoo, which is something I couldn't do a mettre en scène or direct, you know. It's and I think the main thing is freedom is one of the main subjects of the film, and I had to be free myself.
When people say hybrid in general, it's like forms that are going out of the idea of the script, whereas your idea of hybrid is more like jumping or having very different levels of telling a story that could go from social sciences to genre films. So was it particularly like pleasing to write?
That was, I mean, even though it's my smallest budget, and I think it's the film in which I suffered the less, because yeah, I think the year before was really hard writing this huge stuff, and I wanted to take some pleasure also, and to I mean, spending time with these girls. I mean, I was really every shooting day was quite pleasant, because I wanted to welcome also the lightness of the set. The crew was like only 10 people. I was used to 40 or 50 people, you know, and I think I wanted something new also in the way of doing, and the hybrid stuff. I mean, for example, of course, I'm the producer, so I do what I can, but what I want. But of course, opening a film with a history lesson of 6 or 7 minutes, I guess, you know. But I wanted to have this opportunity, and I was, of course, very happy of what Patrick gave us. That is a great pleasure when you are in this state, you know. I wasn't stressed, for example, in the set, though I should be, because some stuff were difficult, even in Haiti, but I was really, I felt very light.
Comedy as well.
Yeah, welcome, which is not I'm not done for that, but being able to welcoming comedy, yeah.
Like really, for me, part of the strangeness of the film is that it walks in a way. It walks on two legs. It walks on two stories, one being in the past, one being in the present, one being very slow and very long, because the zombie story is supposed to happen over many years, while the breakup story is quite fast. So this gives a very strange rhythm to the film. And then, like the film is progressing, and in the end there is some kind of trance moment where everything comes together, which is really the moment of hybridation of the film. So yeah, again, many questions in that question, but like there is always these moments of trance that you are looking for in films, and I was wondering if it corresponds to some like state of mind in writing as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we were talking about the 3 acts, you know. I really like, and when the last third of a film, the ending of a film, you buy, mostly by the editing and the writing, the way you jump from one place to another, or from one period to another, and you have that in Saint Laurent also very much, and in Nocturama when there is the attack by the police. you know, you start to lose time and space and everything. I like this sensation. I know I have to be aware of that, but it's a guilty pleasure, I think. But yeah, there's you know, you're playing with all the tools of the cinema you have. I hope one day I will be able to end a film in a very simple way, but maybe not. It's, but I like the fact that the more you go into the film, the more you get lost in something, you know. And in Zombie Child, of course, you have the two separate stories that are not very linked together. And I guess when you see the film, you say, okay, at one moment there is a link that's going to happen. And for example, the fact that one of the main character arrives after like an hour, you know, the Mambo. It's something that when I gave the script to read, a lot of people told me this is not good. You should be there earlier. So no, I like the idea that, you know, after an hour you have someone new. You spend 10 minutes with her, and I know it could be boring, but and then you start to understand how it's going to, you know, put everything together, the past and the present, Haiti and France, and the zombie and the young French girl, you know.
Some of the characters are more detailed than the other, and you are talking about the aunt of Melissa. And like you really spend like 5 minutes with them explaining what she's doing for a living, giving private lessons, like walking with the dogs of. Why was it important for you to give her such a backstory? When, like for example, when you look at all the young girls' characters, they are not like fleshed out at all.
Well, yeah, because when you arrived, like a new character, like after an hour, I mean, when I showed the film, the edit version, first reaction is, oh, you should cut all the moments, you know, with the dogs and everything. Fanny has huge sorrow. She goes and sees the aunt, you know, and then you lose the character of the aunt because she becomes just an instrument for the main character. If you want that the scenes between them after are really strong, you have to give her the chance of existing, even if it's with everyday scenes that are not maybe, you know, interesting, but you give her the chance to exist, and then in the face à face to be strong enough to, you know. Otherwise, she's just an instrument and a tool of screenwriting, yes. But I didn't feel at ease with that. I really wanted to give her a real life and a moment. And I think leaving Fanny with her huge sorrow after like an hour and going somewhere else, you give to the spectator a frustration also, which is, you know, interesting. A little risky, but...
Yeah. There is also one moment just before, like when she's being introduced, that like is a little bit like what you said about Nocturama. Like this time is bégayé. I don't know how you say that. I don't know if you understand that word, bégayé. Like the time stops and then you are seeing the same thing over and over again for like some time.
It's like I use, but I don't know how to say it in English either. Comme un disque rayé, quoi. A record that's
a broken record,
coming back and back and back.
Yeah. But like Melissa has a discussion with her aunt, and then later her aunt has a discussion with her niece, and it's actually the same discussion but like 10 minutes apart. What like gave you this idea?
It's just a question of keeping your point of view. When we were Melissa, I didn't want to do like a shot of Melissa on the phone, shot on the aunt. You know, it's maybe easier to follow the film, but it's not that important because the conversation is not that important. But when you understand that when you arrive to the aunt and you have the same conversation, in fact you went back in time. You know, it's just to be. It's something I like to do. Yeah, it's maybe bad habits, but.
But it makes the film very complex in terms of speeds. As I was saying, this voodoo story is happening over long years. It's really slow. It's the past, but then at some moment, like when we're watching the Haitian town, it's contemporary. Everything is mixed, and yeah, you have a very strange feeling of speed and time in every of your film, but this one particularly.
Yeah, I know. I know that I lost a lot of spectator with that, and it's something some people don't like. But me, it's something I say quite often. But when you go into a theater, a cinema, it's like, you know, you close the door, you're out of reality, you don't listen to you know, and you're ready to go into a brain, you know, and it's how I write and imagine films, you know, with kind of labyrinthical path movements. Either they are geographical or mental, but it's. I really like when a film starts and you know basically what you're talking about, and the more and more you're going into something that you're, you know, a little more mysterious, a little more mental. It's something I really enjoy as a spectator. So I guess I'm trying to reproduce it when I make films.
The only film that you watched, or did you watch many films like as a research for this one? I would.
Not many, because of course no zombie films, because my zombie is very different from the American zombie in cinema. But I rewatched, of course, I Walked with a Zombie of Jacques Tourneur, also the White Zombie, which is the first zombie film in 1931 with Bela Lugosi, which is still a Haitian zombie. Of course, Les Maîtres Fous by Jean Rouch, which I showed to the actress. Maya Deren, The Divine Horseman, and a few documentaries of friends of mine that were shot in Haiti. But most of the research were either pictures, photos, or a lot of books, in fact, but not too many features.
But you need this research to write, like for example, all this documentary aspect of the rituals in Haiti.
I think I'm some quite stressed guy. I need to do a lot of research to reassure myself, and I really love to be very, very precise on some details, even on the scripts. For example, in the House of Tolerance, I read so many things about brothels, and the film is full of real, true details, and then when I have that, I feel very free to in the fictional part to go out of reality, because I've got these details that it's my neurosis, I guess.
So do you sometimes need help with that? You write most of your scripts alone, but when do you feel like you need a screenwriter or some other look about what you wrote?
Well, I find it more and more difficult, in fact, the writing. I know for some friends, directors, it's more and more easy, because I think you know, I have to go more and more deeper and deeper inside myself to find something that really strikes me, and so I need not co-writers, but maybe more than before to talk with some friends and fortune tellers. Yeah, that's what I'm doing now. Trying to finish my script with a fortune teller, which is, but she's in Serbia. She's great. Yeah, you try to find new ways, but not a co-writer, no. Because I tried, but I have to write myself because I'm going to direct the film. For me, there's no difference, you know. It's only one movement. The writing, the directing, the editing, doing the music, it's just, you know, you're just doing a film. So if you have a co-writer, is going to be on the writing. And so it's, I need some people to talk, that's for sure, but not to write.
As you speak about screenwriting, like I feel that there is no kind of blockade or like writer's block. That everything is quite rational.
There's something I use a lot. The oblique strategies of Brian Eno. This I used a lot for a long time, which is like fortune tellers in a way, but it makes you think. It makes you think a lot. To different options, it pushes you to something against your nature. When I said I think it's more and more difficult, is you write something and you say, okay, in fact, this is easy. I've done it already. I know it worked in this film, but okay, so you put it away. So you know you have less and less tools. You have to find them more and more. I don't know where.
Maybe before opening up the discussion to the audience, like I feel that this film is a little bit different from what you did before, and that sometimes, like in a lot of films, you see echoes from like previous scripts, previous films, and also from this book I was mentioning with like 4 screenplays that were never shot, and that why you printed them. But I feel that this film is quite different, and also in the way that there is like for example, this character of Melissa, like she's really free in the end, and it rarely happens to a character in your film.
Yeah, I mean it's different in many ways, and also as I said, the time span, the speed, and everything, and the fact that for the first time I am going into another country, another culture with a story which is different, and you have to ask yourself many questions, delicate questions that I never thought about before, and at the same time you want to take some new risks and to welcome something more unknown. I think it's and to have pleasure doing that. So I think it's in this sense I took some new directions. For the next film, when I'm finishing writing, I'm also trying to go against nature, to try some new stuff. And it's always a little scary, you know, and full of, it's very weird because it's all about believing or not, you know. Sometimes you have faith in what you're doing, and the next day you lose faith, and it's the same stuff. So what I usually do in a script, I write quickly the first draft, and there are always like 4 or 5 scenes that I really, really want to shoot, and they like the roots of the desire for the film, and these scenes, they're going to be in the final draft, and they're going to be in the final editing. And when you lose faith, you just go back to these scenes and to remember why you had this strong desire of the film. And I call them, in French, les scènes fondatrices. You know, it's not in terms of narrative, but it's really in terms of desire. And in every film, except Zombie Child, which was done in a different way, I have these 3 or 4 strong scenes for me that keep my desire even when you lose faith. And after the rest is just work, in fact.
So maybe, for example, to take another, like a previous script, which is really fascinating, and that you never did it, but it's such a fascinating screenplay, is the one about Vertigo that you wanted to not remake, but do from the perspective of Madeleine. What was the scenes that you really wanted to do in that?
Well, this one was a little different. I was really, I don't know how I had this idea, but okay, Vertigo is a very special film because I think it's an obsession for all the movie makers around the world. But I was working on another script and trying to find how in one scene a man can fall in love with a woman, just an image, you know. So you're thinking about all the films that succeeded in that. And I thought about Vertigo in the restaurant at Ernie's, you know, when he sees her the first time and it's done. And I thought then, okay, but this girl, she's really in Hitchcock's films, she's an image, but in fact she has a real life, you know, and we don't know anything about her. So that's how came the idea of doing a film about her. And then the scenes I really wanted to shoot is probably what happened before Vertigo, the meeting with the husband, or the rehearsal to become Madeleine, from Judy to Madeleine, which was like theatrical stuff. That was scenes I really wanted to shoot. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if there is any questions in the audience. Very quiet audience.
Yeah, I guess there is an influence because but in the screenwriting, on the set and on the editing room, I think a lot about in terms of rhythm, but not the rhythm of the action, not the rhythm of the narrative, but you know, yeah, like the rhythm of a note or something like that. And you were talking about music. I do the music of the film while I'm writing the script, not after. And it's part of dialogues, it's part of the sound of the film, music is part of the sound of the film. It's all in one movement. So it's something I think about quite early, I guess, yeah.
When you compose the music, you have the scenes in mind, or it's just a theme?
In fact, when I write and I feel a scene needs some music, I stop the writing, I go into my little studio and I start to find the most important thing is the color of the music, which sound is it a guitar, is it an electronic stuff, which sound. Then when you have the color, you go back and finish a little the scene by writing. Then you go back to the studio and start to find 3 or 4 notes, and it's like making bridges between the two. And usually when the script is finished, the music is finished. And
you sound productive. It doesn't sound like you have too many problems getting blocked or anything, but can you talk a little bit about your created habits for writing? Like, do you try to have a page count that you try to hit every day, or a set amount of hours? Just the sort of the technical workings of you sitting down and feeling like you've had a good day of writing. And does that look like 3 weeks and then you take a break and come back to it, or how does that work?
Usually, I do from 9 to 2. Then I do a nap, and the rest of the day is dedicated to either doing some research or walking and thinking, taking notes, and then I try to also to write quite quickly. So I have a first draft, for example, I say in a month or something, which is very bad because it's done very quickly, but it allows me to print it, take 10 days off, reread it, and do another one quickly. And yes, but I'm a 9 to 2 guy. But it's always a mix between dreaming and writing, you know, and I don't do them at the same time. Writing is like real work, and you know, it's and then you have to take some time to daydream or night dream, and I walk a lot into gardens without telephone, without internet, just to be in the best state possible to welcome ideas or sensations, and then you go on your desk, and this after it's work. But
Hi. You were saying that picking songs is very difficult. I think that's what you're saying in the films. And my question to you was, as a filmmaker and also a writer, how important is the audio in a film? How important does the quality, let's say, of the acoustics, obviously, in a room like here, but also in a film, how important is the audio opposed to the visual aspects?
The quality of the audio of the songs.
Find them. I got a loud voice.
Yeah, I often use like very rare stuff with very poor quality. It's the guy who mixes the film always wants to kill me, but and the next one is going to be terrible. The quality audio. It's the sound of the film is it's like a lot of layers, you know, of stuff. And when I use a song, for example, it's always a song that the character listens to. It's never me deciding. It's always in the scene, so it's mixed with the ambiences, with the direct sounds. So I don't really care, you know. Okay, sorry, I didn't get the question. No, you know, when I said when I'm obsessed with the idea that you don't write a script, you write a film. Well, sound is part of the writing also, you know, and there are some sound indications on the script. Not too many because I know it's boring to read, but when I write a script, I write two stuff. I have the script, and then I have some notes that I'm going to use for the shoot, about mise en scène, about colors, about, you know, details that you don't put in the script. And there are many notes about sound, and it's true that I spend a lot of time on the mixing room and the sound editing room, and I've got the same person working with me for a long time, for 5 or 6 films, and I know that there is so many sensations that you can bring with sounds, and that are important. And of course, a lot of people know they don't see films in theaters, but on their computers or whatever. But still, I do not give up about the importance of sound into the sensation of a film. Probably it's my past of musician, and the fact that I spent so much time when I was a teenager in studios, but sound studios. But it's really in fact, I would love the fact that it's too complicated in terms of technique, but usually you do the image edit, then you do the sound edit, and I have the dream that you do the same, you know, both at the same time. I know the Walter Munch, the editor of Francis Coppola, for Apocalypse Now, for example, he was doing this both at the same time, and he wrote a book about that, which is really interesting. But it's something, you can say stuff with sound that you cannot say with an image, because an image is something very clear. We can describe an image, I can show you a picture of something, and we can describe what it is. But a sound is something that you cannot describe. It's going to be tough to use the words, and so it's another way of telling something that is more not so clear, and this not so clear is very interesting.
And I think everyone listening or watching has then their own perception and their own take on what it means, and I guess that changes what they experience. So, thank you very much.
Okay, Theresia is a special case. Theresia comes from the dream of a friend of mine. Like 4 or 5 years before I did the film, I hadn't done any feature yet. I have an Italian friend called Luca Fazzi, and he told me about this dream. And in the dream, I have to remember, he's lying on a bed, and there is someone sitting on a chair, and he tells him the story of Theresia the way you saw it in the film. So he wakes up and writes down his dream, and I read the thing. It's like 3 pages, and it's extraordinary. It's like a theorem. It's really a fantastic story. So I told him, you should make a film. I mean, this is so unique. It's great. It's brilliant. It's rich. And he started. He tried for 3 or 4 years. He's not a movie maker. He's a fashion photographer. So he tried to write the script, and I invited him home, and after 4 years he gave up, and I did 2 features during that time. And so I called him. I say, well, where are you with Theresia? And he said, it's a nightmare for me now because it's getting too obsessive. And say, do you want me to give a try? Can I try to write a script and to make the film? I said, yes, okay, do. So I wrote the script, and I tried to change a few things that I didn't like so much. Relationship with religion, which was too... And in fact, the dream was so clear, and so you cannot change anything about this dream. It's very weird. So I did, just from 3 pages, I went to, I don't know, 80 or 90 pages, and I did the film. And then the film was selected in competition in Cannes, and I wanted Luca to come with me because it's his dream, So I showed him the film just before we went to Cannes, and he ran away after the screening, and I received the day after like a huge email of insults that end by, you stole my dream. This is not the dream I had. And yeah, so yeah, it's a little, I don't know if I answered your question, but it's, what I meant is all the characters, all the stuff were on these 3 pages that came from the dream, that man sitting on a chair telling the story.
There was another question here.
Thank you. So you mentioned that when you write a script, you write roughly 10 drafts. And I wanted you to ask, what are the main differences between the first draft and the 10th draft and the last draft? Like, how much does the story change?
Not at all. It's very, very close. It's just better. I mean, when I say not at all, it's the same beginning, the same end, the same arc. But one scene that was very bad in the first draft is getting better and better. I add some details. But I don't change much my ideas. I just try to get them more and more cinematographic, and and the dialogues get better, but not the story, never.
Anybody else? Here.
Thank you very much. I was really fascinated because I thought that during your film you really made the audience think and discover something which is very beautiful, and you would probably need a lot of time to explain about it, but about the whole philosophy of another culture. But now I wanted to ask you, can you give us maybe 2 or 3 examples how you work with the actors, especially when you have such a small crew like you had in Haiti? Or maybe compare it to a situation when you have a real large crew?
Well, with the actors, it's of course it's very different when you have like in front of you a 15 years old girl, or if you have Helmut Berger. You know, it's well, in fact, no, it's the same with Helmut Berger. It's a bad example, but if you have Gaspard Ulliel, for example, but. With the actors, I try to work before, not rehearsing, not at all, but for example, I send them some music. I usually do a CD, well, we don't do CDs anymore, but with a playlist that would be close from the character. It's not the music that's going to be in the film, but it's some moods that can, you know, be related to one moment in the film, a scene or something. I try to send some thoughts, some pictures, you know. I try to bring them on the set and they arrive on the good mood. If you succeed in that, after you have 3 days just to learn how to talk to each other, and after basically it's done, you just go like faster, slower, left or right. And in the examples of non-professional actor, which I had on the last film and the one before Nocturama, of course you know that what you write and what you say and what you decide is 50% of the character, and the 50% of the remaining is what the person will bring, you know, and you have to welcome that. Not try to break it, to welcome it. It's music, the way they walk and, you know, and talk. And actors, it's you have to find. There is one moment which is really tricky. Is you make one take, for example, okay, and you say, okay, cut. Then you go to the actor and you have like 5 seconds to find the good way of talking to him or to her, and you mustn't say like. You mustn't talk like 4 or 5 minutes, you know. You have to find the 2 or 3 words. And the 2 or 3 words that's going to work on this actor is not the same that's going to work on this actor. It's like if, you know, you have many keys, but there is only one that fits. And it's kind of intuition to find the good, you know. Some actors really want some psychological explanations. These are the worst. You want to die, but you have to accept sometimes. You know, they say, but don't you think my character at that moment, because it's thinking about the mother, say, wow, okay, but I try not to and I also try to give some very physical indication, and the way of doing a gesture, the speed of that, you know, and if all this is right, is done in the right way, well, all the psychological aspect of the character is comes with it, you know.
Actually, in Zombie Child, the dances are described pretty precisely in the script. Like when Melissa is dancing, when she's sitting and just with her arms, like this is something that you thought about.
Yeah, it's when you ask what's happening draft after draft, it's more this kind of details, much more than a change of a story or a change of a character. It's just that more and more you get closer and closer from your film, you know, from something that more incarnated.
One last question, maybe. So here.
Thank you. I wanted to come back on the way of working, because if you don't change the story during the drafts, and you first mentioned that you have 1 or 2 pages where are some scenes you really want to shoot, when and how are you constructing the story? By walking or by taking notes? Or?
Basically both. I walk a lot, and it's basically when you have the formal way of telling your story or your ideas, and there is one moment comment on dit le fond et la forme?
Oh, la forme. Like form and like context and form.
Yeah, when formal stuff and context stuff, they're gonna marry together. When you have this evidence, after I can start to write. Yeah.
Well, if there is no more question, thank you very much, Bertrand, for this
Merci à vous.
interesting talk. And thank you for being here.